Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. We're ready to get started with today's BoardDocs webinar with Virginia School Boards Association. This webinar will last around 30 minutes and will conclude by 1:30 p.m. We encourage you to send your questions into the Q&A box, and we will address those during the webinar. This session will be recorded, and a link to the recording along with the slides will be emailed after the webinar. We ask that you mute your lines to minimize the noise. Today, we're delighted to have Samantha Bosserman, Director of Communications and Board Development for VSBA with us, as well as Andrew Klein, BoardDocs e-Governance Specialist. Welcome, everyone. And Samantha, I'm going to turn the webinar over to you for a brief introduction for VSBA. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, and thanks for having us, and thanks for hosting this great webinar. Just wanted to say hi to everybody out there. And just give you a little bit of background about the partnership that VSBA has had with BoardDocs. We've actually been partners for many years. I think we were one of the first state associations to sign on and really work with BoardDocs. And we actually use BoardDocs for our state association board meetings. And so I have been in the document publisher role. I've been on the administration role from just watching the BoardDocs information and getting it out there. So if I do have any document publishers on the line or clerks or whomever that are thinking about becoming document publishers, I'd love to talk with you and answer any questions that you have from a state association level. And I know that Andrew's going to get into a lot of information here on this webinar. So anyway, just wanted to say thank you all so much for joining us today and for learning a little bit more about BoardDocs, what you're currently doing, what you could be doing, and if you're just really starting your research on BoardDocs, the transparency, the ease of access, the time that it saves. I will just say from being a document publisher and doing the not handwritten, I'm not that old, but doing the hard copies, information, mailing it out, switching over to BoardDocs has saved so much administrative time and trees also. So a lot of great benefits. I'm going to give it back to Andrew to let him go through everything, but anyone, please do not hesitate at any time to give VSBA a call to have a conversation about BoardDocs or anything else. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Sam, for that introduction. And again, thanks for being here and for your partnership and working so well with us. I'm actually going to turn it over to Andrew now. He's going to give an overview of BoardDocs before going into the demonstration.
Perfect. Thank you both for leading me up to this. Yeah, this is, I'm always happy to do these webinars. I think it's really helpful to, do a little overview before, I walk through the system. And so some of you might be familiar with BoardDocs, others may not. So essentially what BoardDocs is that we're a board management solution, right? So we can manage both the agendas as well as the policies. And BoardDocs is great because you can do this from any device, right? Any device that has a web browser on it, right? So you can create, manage, and publish it from, most of the time it's a computer, but you can do an iPad or an iPhone or any other device. And we have close to 3,000 subscribers now, majority of which are schools. And the really, I think, great part about working for BoardDocs is that most of our subscribers are really pleased with what we provide them, right? And that's why we have a 98% retention rate. And that's not something that is very common in the tech world, right? So I think that, I think that speaks for itself, but, a big reason as to why is that our system's always working, right? It's a 99.999% uptime, right? Which means maybe a minute out of the year or whatever. I don't know the exact timing, but we're really rarely ever down, and it would only be to update or anything like that. There are different versions of BoardDocs. There's LT, Pro, and then you can add Plus to either of them. A quick overview of LT, and LTs basically are I would say, I don't want to say starter because a lot of people start with Pro as well, but is our basic solution, and it allows you to create and manage your agenda, right? You can do it very simply and easily. You have in the screenshot you'll see you have a featured tab and a meetings tab and a policies tab, and that's really what it is, right? So you have your meetings, you can work both in draft and active and get those all published. You can do the same, a very similar thing with your board policies and your school policies. You're also able to it's a minutes tool that's similar to Word, but you can keep your minutes in BoardDocs LT. and everything's searchable, right? So we have a feature called meta search that I'll show, but it allows you to search all of our clients' public information, and this is really helpful when developing policies or when like knowing where to start with something, right? And that's a part of LT. And then the last part of LT is the video integration. So if you video record your meetings, you can put that right into BoardDocs, and then you can even timestamp it, which is really great because you can know, okay, I just want to look at this specific motion or the public participation or whatever it may be. They can click on that, and that part of the video will pop up. So that's BoardDocs LT. BoardDocs Pro is everything that LT has, everything that we just discussed, but you get a few other things, right? You get a workflow process. And the workflow process is really helpful when there's a multitude of people submitting items to a board clerk saying, hey, I want to get this onto the agenda. And if they need approval, the workflow allows that to all happen and makes it a lot easier on the clerk to, get everything compiled. The Pro also has a minutes tool that is like none other. I think that it really streamlines that whole process, and it takes a little bit longer to demonstrate that, but if you guys want to learn a little bit more about that, I can go into that on a one-on-one meeting. But in that minutes tool as well, you get an electronic voting tool. You also have the ability to annotate privately, your board members would. And then there's a library section, which you'll see that right on the home page. And that allows you to do a bunch of different things, but the main thing is the strategic goal tracking, right? So you can track your strategic plans or any special projects, and it builds a progress report for you so that both the public and internally, the board or administrators can see exactly where you are in terms of your strategic plan or a project you're working on. So that's BoardDocs Pro. And then Plus can be added to either LT or Pro. Right, so it's contingent on really your needs, but allows for unlimited meeting bodies, right? So if you have a plethora of different committees, or maybe a commission, or a charter school board, or a different type of board that isn't just the main board, you can have an instance of BoardDocs for them, and it gives different authenticated users for each one. So if there's a publisher on the curriculum committee that an admin that works specifically with a specific committee, they can be a publisher just for that committee, right? And so it allows you to separate, the managers and the administrators for each different meeting, and you even have different voting members and executive access for each group as well. And so that can be added to either. I think this is where I will walk you through the
Andrew, I will turn it over to you to give them a little preview of BoardDocs.
All right, show screen. Let's see. Which one? This is the one I want to share. There we go. Can you see this now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So you see this, right now I currently have the public site. This is my site, but it's public right now, and I featured a few things. Right now I don't have any meetings featured, but I can feature some documents, some policies, and if you're using that Pro functionality to track goals, you can feature them as well. So I'm going to log in just to show you what it looks like from a clerk side, because I think that's a little more powerful, and we don't have too much time, so I just want to show you quickly. Everyone would have their own unique username and password from the board members and on the clerks, and they'd be able to log in like this. And when you do so, a few more things will populate. These are some of the things that I'm working on now. Here are those meetings that I might have featured them, but not for the public. And then I've featured a few other things. The big thing I want to show you is the Meetings tab. The Meetings tab allows you to host your meetings and create all the documents there. So just for an ease of use perspective, you can see I could click right into this regular board meeting right from the featured page, and then boom, I'm right here. And so in the Meetings tab, there's active meetings, which is where we're at now, any past meetings that had happened or upcoming meetings. You also have a draft area, and I'll show you how that works. But when you're in active, you have a few options here. You can view the agenda. You can print the agenda still. You have a few options there. This is where you would add your minutes or your video. And then this MCP is the meeting control panel, which is a part of Pro, but it's that whole minutes tool that I was talking about earlier. But when you view the agenda, you can see your agendas over here on the left. And when you click through, all the content would be here in the middle. And you see there's 3 different content levels. And this is really important and something that's unique to BoardDocs because, currently if you make an agenda, all the content might be here in public, and you might have to email your board something that's private. But in BoardDocs, you can, on a specific agenda item, have different content for different users, right? So this would be seen by everyone, obviously in the public and internally. This would be seen only by the administrators or the board members, and then executive content would be board members' eyes only. So, an example here would be maybe closed session. You want to have the whole closed session items up here to say, hey, we will be discussing this, but the content might be private or in executive, right? So this is really what the agenda looks like. And when there's an attachment, let's see if I have any attachments on here. Doesn't look like it. I can go into one of my drafts. Oh, there it is. When there's an attachment, you have a little icon here that says there's something that's attached. And you can attach as many things as you'd like. But I want to show you how to create a meeting, right? That's what it looks like internally. It would look very similar for the public, except they wouldn't have that, executive or executive content. But when you're creating an agenda, you would click on draft, and we'll help you. We come on site and we train, and we'll make sure that you feel comfortable doing all this. So we'll help you create your first meeting. But all your meetings are here. I have a ton of them in here. But anything that you're working on. So say we're working on that June meeting. You'd be able to come in and view the agenda. You can make edits up here. You can change the date, the name, all the big things there. But if you want to change the actual agenda itself, you would have to come in to view the agenda. And this is where you'll create new categories or new agenda items. You can create a new agenda item just like that, and it will always populate right below the most recent agenda item. But the really nice thing about BoardDocs that differs from, Word or something in-house is that when you can drag and drop, and then it renumbers it for you, right? So I can move this around, and it's all renumbered in an instant. So if something's added towards the end, or if you're adding something after you've made a meeting active, you can simply renumber instead of, in Word, you'll have to type that all up, and it's sometimes tedious, right? So in this agenda item, let's just say it's going to be right here. I can come in and edit it. You can choose the meeting that it's going to be on, right? If I made an agenda item, then I realized actually this is really going to be on our May meeting or whatever it is. You can move the meeting. You can change where it's going to be on the agenda, right? You can move it to new business, and I can change the agenda. So this would be new business item. You also have the ability to make items private or public, just specific items. So that maybe the whole meeting is public, but a specific item might be private. And then you have different types, right? So it could be a discussion, it could be a follow-up task. If it's an action item and you're voting on it, a few more things will populate down here, when the dates you want to vote on this, with the impact, financial information, and then the recommended action. And you could fill that all out if this was an action item. But just for ease of use, let's make sure that, let's just say this is a procedural item. Down here is where you have all those content items, right? So you have public content, and this is a rich text editor, so you can link sources in here, you can copy from Word, you can do a lot of things in here in terms of formatting that are akin to Word that makes it really easy to make your agenda look the way you want it to. And then you have files where you can put all your attachments. And you see this would be in the public content. The same ordeal is down in administrative, where you have a rich text editor and the ability to make attachments, and again with executive, right? So this is how you would create an item. This is where most of the work will happen, and so this is what you'll get this with LT or Pro, all of this. So when I save that, I moved it. If you remember, I moved it to new business. So now when I scroll down to new business, it will be right at the bottom, new business item, and then I can move it up or wherever I need to put it. And so that's really what it looks like to create an item, right? And if you create a category, a similar thing happens. It will pop up all the way at the bottom. What I can do is I can just collapse this agenda, and then there's that new category, and I say I can move it wherever I'd like to move it. So similar ordeal there. And this is where, most of the work will be done. Just to show you, oops, didn't mean to do that. Just to show you what it looks like to create a whole new meeting itself. you can come up here and create a draft meeting and, a whole new meeting and start from scratch. Or if your meetings look similar month over month, which a lot of times our clerks will say that's the case, you can right-click and duplicate a meeting. So say this June meeting, maybe your agenda looks very similar month over month. You can duplicate it and choose, maybe we won't have this accounts payable for April, or maybe you want to keep it there and just change it to May or another whatever month it is, right? You can say we're not going to approve those minutes, or keep it and then change the title to something else. You're also able to duplicate attachments. So once I duplicate this, it will come up, it will duplicate on the day that I've done it, right? So May 24th, here it is, copy of that June meeting. And then I would go in and change all the verbiage here, change the date, everything like that. So this is, again, where the bulk of the work is going to be done. And I just wanted to highlight how that functions and what that looks like. Obviously, if you are interested in BoardDocs, we can dig a little deeper. I just want to touch on the surface of that, right? What also is important just to note is that everything's searchable at the top of this, right? So you could search drafts, you could search active meetings, you could go into your policies if you have your policies loaded into BoardDocs, and you could search your active policies, and here are all my policies. Or, again, I have draft policies as well, similar to draft agendas. And then lastly, you can actually have retired policies and search that as well. Or, if you didn't want to search right at the top, or maybe you didn't know exactly where something was, this magnifying glass here at the top searches your entire site, right? And you can say, I want to search meetings, I don't want to search policies, and I do want to search my minutes and my attachments, and I can search something. The other unique feature of BoardDocs, and I mentioned this earlier, is this meta search. Meta search is unique because, one, we have almost 3,000 clients, and the ability to search all their public information. I think it's 1 in 5 school districts currently use BoardDocs, so 20% of all the school districts out there are using BoardDocs, and you'll be able to search all their information. So if, a big one that I always do is maybe you're developing a drone policy and you don't know where to start. You can just type in drone into the meta search, or UAV, or whatever term you're looking for. And this time it brought up 91 matches, and you can see all these districts that, this is an agenda item, but here's Provo City's, Utah's school district's policy on drones and UAVs. And then I can click on that and see exactly what their verbiage is on policy. So this is a really unique feature that, even if some of our competitors had something similar, they don't have the clientele to be able to really have the depth of information, right? And so you can search throughout that all over the states, and you could bring it down and say, you could make it by state, like I drone FL, I don't know if there's any drone policy in Florida, but you can do it. Yep, here's one, right? So you're able to do that.
Hey, Andrew.
If you are to go, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in about the meta search. I know at the association level, we have used it many times, especially when we were creating the Green School Challenge to try to see what was out there from other states, what kind of resolutions had been passed in other states and specifically in Virginia. So just to let everyone know, it kind of seems like, okay, why would I ever need to search, what's going on? I have policy services, what do I need all of this for? But it's great because it searches, you can search anything and everything. And then you can even search within, like Andrew said, your own library and your own meetings. So if you say, I know this happened 4 or 5 years ago, where did it go? When did we host that, or when did we approve that? It's all in the search. And so it's a great feature. It seems like you may or may not use it, but we use it all the time, and I know many of the subscribers do as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that was great insight. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so as Samantha said, the search is really something that a lot of our districts, when they do go with BoardDocs, they truly highly value. And I could show a lot of different things, but what I wanted to highlight now, just because, this is something that you can see here, is that in LT, you have the featured page, the meetings tab, and the policies tab. If you were to go with Pro, which, I think is our best solution, most of our districts, I think it's 2/3 of our districts are on Pro now, and, the first thing you'll see with the Pro is the difference in that you have the library section. And the library section holds a few different things, right? You can have a general library section, which essentially you would put information in here, documents, things that aren't necessarily on your agenda, but are very relevant to your board or to the public, right? So maybe some Friday notes, if you have notes every week, you can do that. You know, you could put some images, you could put newsletters, you could put anything in here. Again, I just have some random things in here just to show you that you can, but it's completely unlimited storage. A great part about the library section, and I mentioned this earlier, is that ability to track goals, right? So say your district has 4 anchor goals. Well, you can put them here, you can feature them, put them right on your homepage, and you can fill out and say, okay, here's all the content of that goal. This is what we're trying to do. And then that progress report would be built for you. And so you can see every single time you've discussed it. And if you'd like, you can say, oh, well, what happened at this August 31st, 2017 meeting? I can click on that and then navigate directly to that agenda item. So now here I am in that August 31st meeting, and I can see that this was the goal that was attached and everything that had happened, whatever it may be. So the library section is really valuable to our districts because it really helps with accountability and also visibility, right? You can put your whole plan in there. You can make, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be like board goals or the, you know, your whole strategic plan. It can be other things like, you know, maybe you're building a new gymnasium and every time you discuss it, you want to have a progress report for that, you know, or whatever it could be. You can track a lot of specific projects in here. So I think a big takeaway, and I'll finish up with this, is that BoardDocs is something that streamlines a lot of different processes, and you choose kind of what you want to work on, right? And that's why we have different levels of service. So, you know, I'll pass the screen share back over to Amanda, and we can finish up the whole presentation. But I think that, you know, if you want to learn a little bit more, feel free to reach out to me. And, you know, if there's any questions, obviously type them into the question box, and we'll try to answer them that way.
Thank you, Andrew.
Of course.
Now, I know one area that our members always talk about is our customer service. So I know that would be something you would want to touch on, especially because we're 24/7 and it's very highly rated. Can you see my slides, Andrew?
Yeah, I can, absolutely, and I can absolutely touch on that. I think that, well, BoardDocs are three pillars are security, support, and innovation. And support is one thing that I think puts us above and beyond most of our competitors, because we have, like Amanda, you just said, we have 24/7 support, and it's really actually 24/7 support. A quick anecdote, which I think is really funny. It was in the winter of this past year. I had someone that was considering moving to BoardDocs, and I told them about 24/7 support, and they're like, I don't know if I believe that. On Christmas Day, they decided to call our support line and just check. And so someone picked up the phone and they're like, oh, BoardDocs, how can we help you? And he's like, just checking, and let it go. But that was a big part for a part of the decision-making process, because he realized, you know, we really are there for you. And the support is not just the 24/7 support when you do come on, but when you start, we come in person and we implement. You know, in the tech world, that's rarity. You know, not many people come on site and show you how to use their platform. They just say, hey, here it is, figure it out, right? Or they do virtual training. Well, we also do virtual training, but we have free online virtual training at any time, right? So you can do the on-site training, and then after that, if a new person comes on, a new board member, or you just want a refresher, you have free virtual training anytime, right? And then there's a nice quote here from one of our prospects that decided to move to the BoardDocs solution because of how user-friendly it was and the cost savings.
Thank you, Andrew. And as we transition into the questions, Samantha, I know specifically for your members around strategic goal tracking, there was some questions that you wanted to ask Andrew, or any other common questions you hear from your members that you feel would be useful?
Thanks, Amanda. I really think the overview that Andrew provided, especially on the goal tracking and showing that can be used for more than just a strategic planning and more than, you know, for different projects and things of that nature. It's a great feature that I know not as many of our members use as I think they should. And so I know for any board members or our clerks listening, when we do a strategic planning training or board development, we often have to remind the boards of the use of the goal tracking feature, because it's a great way to go back and you can actually backtrack goals. So if you have a strategic plan that's in its 3rd year, you can go back, and if you've been a BoardDocs user for those 3 years, you can go back and track that. And it's a great way to be able to go in and click on the goals. So say you want to see what you've done for goal 2, you and then also your community can look at that information, or your board of supervisors. If you're making that budget request, they can see, okay, this is, why things are being done this way because of the goal, and these are all of the action steps that the board has taken to reach this goal. So really just utilizing that feature is really important, and I think Andrew showed showed the screenshot, showed how they would be assigned from the document publisher point of view, but then also from a board member point of view, you can click on those goals, monitor the goals, and really see where you're going.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam. And then Andrew, anything else to add before we finish up here?
Yeah, I think that, moving to something like BoardDocs, there's always an initial hurdle, or like, I don't want to say fear of change, but you might have a process currently that works for you, right? And it might be tedious, it might be time consuming, but you're used to it, right? And so I think sticking your neck out and trying to say, okay, this is an investment we should make is always a risk. But I think that, when you look at a 98% retention rate, or you look at, the support that we're able to give, I think BoardDocs is always a great solution to a lot of the issues that, that I guess hinder people from making this choice, right? So I always think about it like, what would you do with your time if you had, an hour and a half back each week, or however much time BoardDocs is able to save you? What would you do with that? And so I think that's a huge question when thinking about, okay, is this a solution that's right for us? And is the partnership between VSBA and BoardDocs, helpful enough?
And we actually do have one question from the audience that I would like to address. Can your policies be reformatted any way that you would like it?
So the formatting in BoardDocs is kind of, well, so yes, we can work with you on your formatting. The way it looks in the system, we can go a little bit more into depth as to kind of what you're looking for and how it appears in BoardDocs. But yeah, we can absolutely format your policies, or help it look the way that you're hoping for it to.
And then one more common question before we end. I know I hear this one a lot. Is there any web browser that is best to use with BoardDocs?
I guess I would say probably Google Chrome or Firefox. I mean, Safari works too if you're on a Mac, obviously. The only one I would, I guess, recommend staying away from is Internet Explorer. I mean, it works completely, but I know Internet Explorer has always given me trouble in my internet searching days.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Samantha, both for your time. I know we are just about at the half-hour mark here. I encourage anybody with questions to please reach out to Samantha or Andrew. They are always here to help. And again, especially with that strong partnership that we have with VSBA, it really helps us to move forward in the state of Virginia with BoardDocs, and we really appreciate their support. We look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for your time today, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.